Everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to talking to an old friend, Tom Daniels, who had a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Tom.
Thank you.
Great to see you. We got connected because you and your team were my kids' ACT tutors. So thanks again for all the great work you did to help them prepare and get ready for college. So thanks.
Well, you're welcome. What a wonderful children you have, and
Thanks.
wonderful that I was able to share some time with them.
Yeah, no, it was great. And so that's a business that you have, and we'll touch on that a little bit. You're an author, and your new book that just came out called Black and White, Like You and Me Too: Parallel Lives Often Intersect, by yourself and Thomas C. Marsh.
Mm-hmm.
I love having authors on the book. I wrote a book many years ago. I have a second book and more books in me, but I don't know what about you, but my first book I had in me and it kind of flowed through me. And my next book, it's not flowing yet. And I don't believe you can force a book.
No, you cannot.
And it was wild because when I wrote my book, I had made an outline. And then when I started writing it, it began to kind of take a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember that feeling. And every time I sit down, I write about 2,000 words. And no, this isn't the flow. It's forced, and so I stop and wait.
It's good that you did stop, because it wouldn't have been authentic or sincere.
Correct. It has to be authentic, right? And so my question to you is, you wrote your first book. How did this book flow through you, and what was the process of that?
Well, after we wrote our first one, which was basically about me and about my co-author Thomas Marsh. And it was interesting. It was fun. But we realized that there were a lot of stories out there similar to ours, where blacks and whites get together in relationships, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a friend, whether it be a teammate. And we were thinking we should celebrate that. We should honor that. I'm old enough to remember that these things weren't that common. They were pretty much frowned upon years ago. And today, not so much. So I wanted to make sure that these people, some of them as old as I am, who stuck their neck out, so to speak, to become couples and teammates and so forth, black and white, that I would honor them. And the fun thing about this, John, which was absolutely great, like you just said, right now you don't have the second book in you. I didn't have to do much. I kept my eyes and ears open for situations where I would see a black and white couple, a black and white teammate, and then I would interview them. And John, it was absolutely almost breathtaking.
Yeah.
The stories that I ran across. I got goosebumps thinking about some of them, because they were just so, in some cases, so sweet. Some overcame problems, and all of them ended up becoming very fruitful. And I think people should know about those. So I have 14 stories in the book, and they're fantastic. A real quick one, if I may.
Wait, before you get into the stories, which I want to get into, I just want to make a comment and talk about something for a moment. You watch the news, you scroll any social media platform, you're seeing such divisiveness, you're seeing so much negativity, so many stories of people pulling each other down and ripping each other to shreds. And and so I applaud the book that the through line is kindness. And so I just want to kind of talk about that, because I think there is more kindness, but I don't know if kindness sells. I don't know if it, they've done studies. I read a recent thing that it's like the negativity and the fear is what keeps people scrolling versus, all the kindness. It just seems to be an anomaly when somebody finds something kind, you text it and spread it around. And so I just would like to understand, I'd like you to talk to how you were drawn to a little bit more on writing a book on kindness, because kindness spurs more kindness.
Well, you hit something very important right there, John. I thought that our first book, Black and White Like You and Me, may have gotten a lot more traction than it did, but I really don't think it was the narrative that people were looking for. As you said, the idea of kindness, happiness, friendship, loyalty, doing things so much better because we are unified. And you use the word divisiveness. Yes, absolutely right. And I'm so sick of seeing it on television and all this. And if I may, this DEI to me doesn't seem very anything much more than divisiveness. You have I know one school district has DEI, and 1 month it's for this ethnic group, the next month it's for this ethnic group, all the way through the school year. And I'm saying to myself, well, how is that bringing people together when it's talking about each one separately? So that's exactly what I wanted to do in this book. Exactly. And like you said, does kindness sell? I don't know. I don't think it's the normal narrative.
Yeah. So you were drawn to write a book on kindness, which you touched on, but what happened in your life that you were drawn to write a book on kindness?
Well, I grew up many years ago in what they would call a mixed neighborhood, and I had friends who were blacks, and then I continued on through school, and then playing sports, playing with both black and white guys. Heck, when I was turned 45, I think it might have been 50, we had a team that went to Toronto, over 45 team, blacks and white guys, and we won the championship. And we just had the greatest time. It was so much fun. And, I've seen over the years that if we work together, there's so much that each culture, each ethnic group can bring to the table to make us all better. And I've seen that. I watched that. I'm very clearly watched that. I enjoy it. And that's really, I think, what draws me to writing about this. Plus, I'm a child of the civil rights movement when I was in high school. And, back then, I couldn't believe it watching television and seeing the hoses and the dogs and so forth. And it just made me sick. And I always had that feeling that I should help make the world a better place in my very small way. This little light of mine, I'm going to make it shine.
Yeah. All right. Good. I love it. That's great. So you write the book, you have 14 stories. How did you, after interviewing people, decide intuitively in your heart that those were the right stories for the book, right? Because, you have an idea, you allow the book to flow through you. Some people may not fit the narrative, so some hit the cutting room floor and some people make the book. What types of stories made the book?
Yeah, it all had to do with previewing them and preparing them. Many of the people, almost everyone in the book, I knew previously. So I knew their story somewhat. And therefore, I had previewed it, prepared it, and I questioned them. I wanted to know many of the things that drove them to perhaps engage in a biracial relationship. And you would have been surprised, John, how forthcoming these people were. Nobody would said, "Oh no, I don't want to do that." They all wanted to tell their story. They loved the idea of telling their story. I want to tell a quick one, if I may.
Yeah.
So this one young man who I coached is a black guy married to a white woman, and they had two biracial children. And so the guy, Scott is his name, was at a gym playing basketball. And a white man comes up to him and says, "Hey, what's your wife?" He knew what he was getting at, that your wife must be white, because the boy was mixed. So he knew that, And so he looks at the guy and he says, "What?" He says, "What's your wife?" And Scott says, "Well, she's Canadian." And she is from Canada. So he just shut the guy right up. He wanted him to say, "Well, she's white," or whatever, and make some snotty comment, but he just said she's Canadian. Oh, I just loved it. That's in the book. I laughed so hard when
that's great.
I heard that one. That's for fun. Sure. Yeah.
And so when you talk about storytelling, right? Everything, I love that you talk about that everybody wants to share their story. We learn through storytelling. Everything is storytelling, marketing, sales, communication. Mm-hmm. So what's the art of storytelling as an author?
Well, I always look for some hook, like something, as I just mentioned about she's Canadian, but in many of these other instances, for example, this black and white couple, older couple, you probably remember, maybe you don't, you're kind of young, but in the newspaper years ago, you could put out an ad like single black woman looking for a man who doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, whatever, right down the line. So this couple, this woman, she actually had the ad that she put out into the Detroit Free Press. John, I'm going to tell you, Jesus Christ himself couldn't have fulfilled her wishes for a man.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about the story, she went through 100, we didn't have cell phones or internet or anything like that, Instagram. It was all done through notes, letters. She received 150 letters. None of these guys could fulfill her wishes, except the very last one. Well, come to find out, and she didn't know, come to find out, she was black, the guy was white. And she said, "Oh my God," she said, "I never said anything that he had to be black, and I'm somewhat ashamed of myself that I kind of was taken aback that he is white." But it worked out tremendously. They've been married many, many, many years.
Right.
And it's just a great story about how it doesn't matter. It's what the person has, what the person is like. If, and this is the key, you get to know them. And that's what most people don't do. Yeah. They don't take the time to get to know somebody.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. What legacy do you want this book to leave?
Well, I don't want a legacy for me. I want it for these people. There are 2 stories in there of people who are dead. Okay, that are dead. I coached this boy. He actually lived with me for a little while, and he got married to a white woman, and they lived out in California, and they never came back to live in Grand Rapids because of their biracial children. They didn't think that living in Grand Rapids, the kids they might feel like not part of it. So they lived out in California, and he dies. In fact, I write his story in here from me about him. And I told his wife, I said, "Look at what we have here. We got a memorial to your husband, to you and your husband, the legacy to live, how wonderful it was that you two took the chance, fell in love, got married, had children, and now it's in the book." And it just gives me great pleasure because of that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. What fulfills you? I mean, you've talked a lot about it, but what fulfills you to just sit down and write and put what most people keep in their head and in their heart fulfills you to put it actually in a book format?
That's a good question. It's exciting. Okay. It's, I feel that It's socially an important thing to do. I taught school for many years. I felt the very same way, that you can make a difference, in somebody's life. Most of the time, you don't even know. I mean, who knows what difference you made? But it does. And I feel very strongly about that. And that's what's led me to my third book. I don't know if you want me to get into that yet, but I can.
Have you written it yet?
Right in the midst of it.
All right.
And
you'll have to come back and talk about it.
Yeah, but it fits right in with what you just asked me.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, tell me the title.
Well, it goes right along with this: Black and White Like Me. And it's about biracial children. I really do feel that has been a group that has been forgotten about. You get an application, John, and you have to mark down white, black, Hispanic. Have you ever seen a box for biracial? I don't know. Maybe not. And so these poor kids, many of them have told me that they have to make a choice. Am I black or white? Well, I'm neither one, And so it's a children's book where these two kids are trying to find themselves by going to the zoo to see black and white animals. It's really cute. And I will be back on the show to tell you about that in the future.
Good. All right. Can't wait. All right. Quick speed round. You ready?
Yes.
A recent book that's had a big impact on you.
Recent.
Or just any book that's had a big impact.
I always go back to Kill a Mockingbird, which kind of fits in with the way I think about things. It's been one of my all-time favorite books. I can read it many times. So many books they have in high school now are this dystopian books like 1984 and Fahrenheit 451, and very scary books. And I find those interesting for sure. And maybe some sort of a foretaste. The crazy thing, John, I actually taught the book 1984 in 1984. Yeah, and it was crazy talking to the students because I said, is that how things are?
Right. That's awesome. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Okay. Let's see. My wife is always telling me things. I got to think which one she said. But the best piece of wisdom, I think, is don't get too upset about anything. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's said in the Bible, this too will pass.
Yeah.
And we just, you go through hard times in life, and as long as you stay together, like these couples in the book, as long as you stay together, you can weather anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Tom, I always enjoy talking to you, seeing you. Thank you again for all the work you did with my kids. They loved working with you and your team on, getting all the tips and tricks on taking the ACTs. I love having you on the podcast, talking about your books, your recent book, Black and White, Like You and Me Too. Being community. If you want to buy the book, can they buy it on Amazon,
yes.
Tom?
Okay, on Amazon and Kindle.
Yeah, you can buy it on Amazon and Kindle. And, feel free to reach out to Tom if you have any questions on it. But Tom, I always enjoy talking to you, and I appreciate you taking the time to put pen to paper and into book format, something to put more kindness into the world. Always appreciated your kindness and everything that you do. And it's great connecting with you always. We'll have you back for the third book, which I'm looking forward to. Then community, you can buy Black and White, Like You and Me Too, by Tom Daniels and Tom Marsh on Amazon.com. Tom, thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, always good talking to you too.